So here's another angle for the slip knot. So again, here's the very, very beginning of the yarn, and then the feeding is over here. So I'm just holding my needles in my hands. So I have my circular needles, I spread them apart. You can see them, whoop. Left one in the left hand, right one in the right hand. So they're kind of tucked behind my fingers so that I can have some fingers free to do the slip knot. So all I do is hold it between my two hands rather. Take my pointer finger, my right finger, and make a loop and pinch it. So I got the pinch here, and I'm going to fold it down onto the rest of the yarn, and then reach in and pull it up. So that's your slip knot. It's big right now, so I'll tighten it. And then I'm going to put that on my left needle. Bloop. And then you just pull to tighten. So now we're going to cast on. So I am a continental I'm a continental knitter. And how I started doing this was my grandmother taught me how to crochet when I was a little girl. So crocheting, I am right-handed, so I hold the hook in my right hand, and all of my yarn feeding came from my left hand. When I started to learn how to knit, and knitting became popular a couple years ago, I had a friend who was a continental knitter, and he taught me how to do it in a continental style, because I started by reading the books, and the books were showing me the American style, or the wrap method, where the yarn is feeding from the right, and you kind of have to wrap it around and to continue. But once he showed me how to do this continental, it just became so much easier for me because I traditionally crocheted that way. So it just made sense. So how I hold my yarn in my left hand, notice this is, my slip knot is on there. I move this piece out of the way for a second, and then I get ready for with my left hand. So I wrap through my pinky, my hand comes down, and I wrap twice around my finger. So this, and then I just hold the needle in my hand, using my thumb and my middle finger to hold the knot there, or the stitch there, and the tension is created from here. This allows me to go really, really fast, because as I'm pulling and adding yarn through, as I'm creating stitches, it just helps me to move quickly. Otherwise, it's a slow process. And when I purl, I pretty much move the yarn forward, and I'll show you how to do that later when we actually have stitches on, and I hold it down below in my left hand, and I do my purling that way. But anyway, so this is behind the needle. It's going to go in my left hand. I do pinky, hand flat, around, and then hold everything with my middle finger and my thumb. Now I will tell you that knitting like this for a while, my hand does get a cramp because I'm holding the yarn so tight to keep my tension. And I do knit tightly, so my work is usually very tight. So that's a piece of it, but at least you can see how to do the stitches, and you can see what works for you better. So we're ready to cast on. So I'm set up here, and here's my right needle ready to do the work. So this is basically, this needle kind of stays put. I move it around a little bit to help, twisting and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it's set up and ready to knit forever. This needle is the one that, because I'm right-handed, that does stuff. So I'm just going to take my left hand, and point it straight up. This is to help show you how to do the cast on. I take my right needle, and I go into the bottom of the stitch, and I cross my needles behind me, right? So I'm going in, and if I turn this towards you, you can see that I'm kind of just in there, and they're crossed. So I came from the bottom, cross it. Now this right needle is free to grab this yarn. So we go around. Now, because it's the very first stitch you're putting on, you might need to use this pointer finger to help guide the yarn. So basically I'm just holding it in place so it doesn't slip off this needle. And you might need to move your thumb to hold this stitch, but we'll see what happens. So I'm pulling down with this thumb to keep this tight I'm holding the yarn there to make sure it doesn't fall off. But I'm basically bringing it through this piece. So I'm trying to show you at different angles what that looks like. But there's a loop on here now. And all you do is you bring the loop up and you put it on to your left needle. And then you have to pull the thread to tighten. So you want the stitches to be nice and firm on here so they're not gapping, because gapping can cause your gauge to go crazy. So nice and firm to do that. So let's try that again. So now I have 2 stitches on there. We're going to go through the bottom of the next stitch, the one I just put on there. So again, I have this angle. It's crossed, I'm facing the ceiling, coming through. I'm using my thumb to move this one out of the way. I'm going to grab some yarn in the back. I'm using my finger to help the yarn stay on. So once you have all of your stitches cast on, you don't really have to use that right finger anymore. Whatever feels comfortable for you. I naturally grab it with that finger, but you feel it. You know, as you're doing it, if it feels secure, then you don't need it. So now I have 3. So I have to get to 102 with this pattern, but we'll continue on the process. So I'll do it just a couple more without talking so that you can just watch and see what I'm doing. So again, I'll just repeat one more time and then I'll let you watch. So you go through the bottom, you wrap around, whoops, you go through the bottom, you wrap around, you bring up, put on, pull tight, adjust. So that's 4. Here we go. Five. The yarn keeps splitting a little bit. It's very soft. So you have to make sure that when you're putting the needle in, you're going through all of the threads, right? Not just pieces of the thread. You want to go through the whole thing. So we're going in the bottom. That's what I keep checking for because one keeps sticking. And that's just yarn quality. Boop. Go through, pull it up, put it on. All right, so I'm going to continue this process. I'll be back when I have most of the stitches on.